Welcome to the Healthy Matters Podcast with Dr. David Hilden, primary care physician and acute care hospitalist at Hennepin Healthcare in downtown Minneapolis, where we cover the latest in health, healthcare, and what matters to you. And now, here's our host, Dr. David Hilden.
Hey everybody, it's David Hilden, your host of the podcast, and welcome to episode 24. If you're a brand new mom or about to become one, you've probably already figured out that there's no shortage of advice out there. But here's the thing. Parenthood is the ultimate on-the-job training. You learn as you go, and sometimes, unfortunately, you'll learn the hard way. Today, we're here to make your journey just a little bit smoother. Joining me today is Dr. Samantha Pace. She is an OB-GYN and women's health specialist who has guided countless new moms and dads through those first precious and sometimes perplexing days. Dr. Pace, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So let's start with the physical recovery after childbirth. You have been at the birth of loads of new babies.
Yeah, probably over 1,000.
Over 1,000.
I'm guessing so.
Wow.
I've been doing
Wow,
this
so you've been doing this a little while. So there's probably nothing that is absolutely, completely typical every single time. But let's talk about what is a typical recovery like for someone who has just delivered a baby.
Well, it depends on whether you've had a C-section or a vaginal delivery, and if it's your first, second, third, etc. In general, we say that bleeding should be like a period or less, and then in general, pain should always be either stable or decreasing. If in general any of your recovery symptoms are worsening, then that is something to be concerned about.
Now, so forgive me if during this podcast I act like I don't know anything, because I don't.
You've never had a baby?
I've never delivered a baby before. And people who have delivered a baby are going like, what does this guy know? This guy doesn't know anything. So I'm going to ask you probably questions that are really stupid. So bleeding after childbirth.
Yes.
Is that for both C-sections and vaginal deliveries?
Yes. Actually, I think people might not know that actually after a C-section, bleeding is lighter in general than after a vaginal delivery.
How many births are done by C-section versus vaginal delivery? And I'm not asking for specific numbers.
Well, the WHO recommends that less than 20% of births should be by C-section. The last statistic I'd heard at Hennepin, which might be old, is that maybe 18% delivered by C-section. We have one of the lowest C-section rates here at Hennepin, partially because of our great midwife service.
Yeah. So why is that a good thing?
Because C-section is a big surgery to have. It's a big abdominal surgery to just deliver a child, and then it also puts subsequent pregnancies at particular risk. And you just don't want to have so many surgeries just to grow your family if you can have a natural delivery. But not all women can have that safely.
Right. So you talked about pain. There's a whole lot of people right now going, yeah, that thing hurt.
A lot longer than
longer. Yeah. So can you talk those who have had a baby through what pain should be like? I don't mean during labor. We're not going to focus so much on that. I mean after. What should it be like for the days and weeks afterwards?
Well, by the time you go home, you should be able to walk on your own, go upstairs on your own.
Like right away the next day?
No, not necessarily the next day.
That sounds kind of aggressive.
Right. So you'll usually go home either 2 days after a vaginal delivery or maybe 2 to 3 days after a C-section. The first day, you dangle on the edge of the bed. You maybe take a walk around your room. You make it to the bathroom. Sometimes you don't. Incontinence is also one of the things that I think a lot of moms might not be aware of. But you take it really slow the first couple of days, but by the time you go home, you should be able to walk slowly but comfortably around your house.
So you should feel okay if that's what you're doing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel all this pressure that you need to be, doing gymnastics and walking around the block and all that,
you don't
right?
Need to be out in the fields working on the harvest. No,
exactly.
Cleaning the house.
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. In fact, don't do any of that.
Right. No, that's why you have hopefully other people helping you around.
Okay. So how long does that discomfort in a person's body last?
That's actually longer, I think, than most people think. C-section scars can be particularly sensitive or tender with specific activities, sometimes 2 to 4 weeks after delivery. Depending on what kind of repair you needed after a vaginal delivery, sometimes that can actually take I hate to say it, sometimes it can take almost longer, sometimes than a C-section if you had a particularly bad tear that required extensive repair, because the pelvic floor, which is also underestimated in women's health, is really the center of your body, right? It connects your lower half to your upper half and sort of anchors everything and is where everything pivots from. And so if there's a repair to the pelvic floor, which often happens with your first vaginal delivery, sometimes your second, things like walking or particular movements can trigger soreness. Nothing that's debilitating, but something that you notice for a while.
Is that common, that there's tears that you have to fix?
Yeah, very
And do you
common.
do that right then and there?
Absolutely.
You've just delivered a baby and there's been a tear.
Right.
Is that common?
Very common. Very common. I'd say probably 90%, 95% for your first time.
Whoa.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Not all of them are so extensive. They're graded 1 through 4. Typically, first and second degree tears are not bad at all. The third degree tears are what get into the muscles that surround the anus.
Mm-hmm.
And so those can be a little bit more extensive to repair.
Okay. And so you have some recovery from that, just like any other, things that a doctor had to stitch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about that incontinence issue.
So if you imagine a baby, some people say having a baby is like pushing a watermelon through a garden hose, but there's a little bit of tension, not a little bit, a lot of tension.
I think there's a lot.
There's a lot of tension that happens on the pelvic floor and the pelvic nerves as the baby is coming through, and labor can take 12 to 24 hours. And so that's a lot of pressure, tension, stretching of the pelvic floor, and that also stretches your pelvic nerves. And those are the ones that sort of tell you when you have to go to the bathroom. And those muscles are the ones that contract and give you continence and ability to control that urge. And then if you get an epidural, if you're having a natural or hoping to have a natural delivery, or a spinal if you have a C-section, that anesthesia works in the spinal cord and also essentially numbs up the lower half of your body. And sometimes that can take a while to wear off as well. But a lot of moms actually don't feel the urge to go to the bathroom right away, right after a baby, because their pelvic floor is still recovering. And the recovery can take up to 12 weeks. The incontinence typically only lasts. The worst incontinence is usually within the first day. And then moms will often learn to just go to the bathroom every 3 to 4 hours, even if they don't feel the urge. Sometimes the first time they have to go to the bathroom, they might have an accident on the way there because they didn't realize it until it's almost too late.
So those are those first few days. So if you're experiencing those, you've just had a baby.
Yeah.
You're normal.
Absolutely.
Or if you've had all of these things.
Oh, yeah. And women are so embarrassed. They're like, I had an accident.
And it's like, oh, gosh, you've heard that
totally
a zillion
normal.
times in your life.
Totally normal. Yes, that's why we don't have carpet.
That's why you don't have carpet in labor and delivery. Boy, there's an insider little thing you bet you never thought of. And why isn't there carpeting in the L&D floor? No, but really, you're going to have pain in your, you're going to have some discomfort. You're going to have some pain. You might have some incontinence. And those are normal. So you should don't feel like you're something that's strange that you're having these things.
Very normal, very normal. And your body will heal and everything will generally improve.
That's a really important point. Okay, shift to sleep. And for those of you who are not the one who just delivered a baby, like a guy like me, I remember some very sleepless nights.
Very true.
What do you tell a new mom in the hospital what to expect in those first few days?
A lot of babies have their days and nights flipped around. And so they're sleeping during the day when you're kind of up and doing things. And then they think, when the evening comes that it's time for them to wake up tired and you want to sleep. So really saying sleep when the baby sleeps is really good advice. It's very hard to follow because as a new mom, you just want to get all these things done and you have a really long to-do list and you've probably been away from your life for like 3 to 4 days to have the baby. So lack of sleep, it can be a serious issue. I feel like lack of sleep and fatigue contribute so much to mood instability, can contribute obviously to functioning, and then it can become like this downward spiral. So really prioritizing sleep should definitely trump things like keeping the house clean.
It should be your top priority.
Yes,
if
exactly.
That baby's asleep.
And one of the more rare complications, but something that can happen, is a mom wants to sleep, but she can't. And her mind is racing. And she's just like, I've gone like 36 hours. I'm trying to sleep. I can't. That for sure should trigger a phone call or a visit to the clinic.
Really, if it's been a long time,
if it's been a long time and they
all.
want to sleep, but their minds are racing or they can't sleep, yeah, that can be the beginning of something not good.
Do they generally call you? Do they call their OB-GYN or their nurse midwife? Or at that point, are you starting to talk to your pediatrician? Which person are you talking to?
They should call their OB-GYN or the nurse line to the hospital. Yeah.
Shift to mood. You mentioned this, and it can be made probably a lot worse with the sleep.
Right.
But there's probably a whole range of emotions.
Very much.
Do you talk about that?
I think new moms put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they're worried that they might break their baby or if they don't do something right. So much, right? You've never maybe had a baby before, and then there's all of this breastfeeding pressure, which is great if you can breastfeed well, and it does take a lot of work, but the expectations and the demands, and then wanting to do everything right and doing everything by the book and doing it on the schedule, and making sure that your breasts are fully empty, that the baby has been gaining weight, that it's burped appropriately, that it has the proper number of wet diapers and poops. There's so much.
There's so much, and there's no instruction manual except there's the internet and there's books and all those things. But really, your kid's your kid, and it's unique in your situation. Is unique. Is it true that the more kids you have, the little bit more lax you get?
Oh, I think so. I think so for sure.
I think we sterilize bottle nipples in boiling water. This is my kid's 30 now, but I think we did that. I mean, I'm telling you, our house would. You could have. It was like a sterile environment, which probably isn't a great idea. But then the second kid comes along, or the third one, and something falls on the floor and you stick it in their mouth.
Right, totally. Absolutely.
Is that common?
Very common. But I think with all of these expectations, it can put a lot of pressure on moms, and then they're going through huge hormonal shifts, and then they're going through sleep deprivation, and they have a new baby who's maybe crying for reasons they don't know, and moms can start feeling overwhelmed and sad and depressed and maybe start feeling guilty. That's when things are trending toward the abnormal. I think feeling tearful, crying for no reason, sometimes feeling tired and stressed out, but then being able to recover and having certain amount of resilience, that's normal. That's normal.
When should someone who's had a baby seek help for their mood?
We generally say if you feel like you're not able to care for yourself or your baby, where all you want to do is lie in bed, or you just can't find the motivation. If the partner is concerned about how they're doing, sometimes moms lose sight of objectivity. And so having a partner being able to check in and say, hey, I'm kind of worried about you. If they start getting some of the really worrisome concerns about, start having, very drastic thoughts about their worthiness, or, everyone questions, of course, if they're a good enough parent, but if it gets really serious.
Till the day you die. You're wondering that your whole life.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I have an almost 3-year-old, and who knows what's going to happen?
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So you're normal if you're having that, but if things are getting a little bit maladaptive, then there's plenty of help for that. That is common, but there's help for that. You mentioned earlier breastfeeding. I want to shift to that if we could. You said there's a lot of pressure to do breastfeeding. Could you just expand on that a little bit? Is it the thing to do? Is it the only thing to do? Why is there that pressure?
Well, interestingly, a little tidbit, I did the master's to a history of medicine degree. I didn't finish the thesis, but I was studying breastfeeding
Everything but
a lot.
Thesis there?
Everything but thesis, but the thesis was supposed to be around breastfeeding. So back in the 60s and 70s, when there was a huge rise in the scientific prioritization and trying to make modern society more scientific, everyone was bottle feeding their baby, and everyone was formula feeding their baby because they thought science was better than the body, and we could create a better formula than what nature could make. And then La Leche League was one of the biggest pushbacks, I think, against that. And moms started gravitating more back toward nature, and the whole phrase breast is best. And so we've swung back again to breast milk being the best. And in terms of this pendulum that's going back and forth, maybe the pendulum is swung a little bit too much into, not too much into the breastfeeding realm. If moms either can't or are struggling, or they don't have enough milk supply, or it's just not working, you've got 3 other kids and breastfeeding a newborn.
There are some practicalities.
Absolutely. You have to go back to work after 6 weeks. You don't have adequate ability to pump at work. Formula is just fine. Formula is going to be great. If you can breastfeed, that's great. And it's great for bonding. And parents who bottle feed their babies say they're just as bonded. I think babies feel the same way. I personally was never breastfed. I feel very bonded to my parents.
So if we go back to breastfeeding, what should people expect? How does it work in those first few days?
It's not going to be this idyllic birds flying, rainbows,
Really?
butterflies.
There's little Tweety birds out,
the baby
It's
just
not?
naturally attaches to the breast, and suddenly mom is happy, baby's fat.
Yeah, everything's going great.
Right. It takes a lot of work and a lot of persistence.
Really?
And people are really adamant about what they think is the best frequency of breastfeeding, what is the best position, how long you should do it, how frequently you should do it. And I think really sort of following your own cues and the baby's cues are probably going to be helpful. Obviously, if your pediatrician is like, your baby's not getting enough, you need to feed more frequently.
Gaining weight.
Then you should do more. But I think the idea that baby should be able to breastfeed within a 15-minute period is a little bit
You mean of being
unrealistic.
born?
No, like a breastfeeding session should be 15 minutes and your breast should be fully emptied and the baby should be satiated. Especially newborns, they fall asleep an awful lot. They'll breastfeed for 2 minutes and they'll pass out. And so then you're trying to get them to wake up.
Because you were told they need to empty this thing in 15 minutes.
Right. And, in your day-to-day activity, maybe you can't sit and breastfeed for 30 to 45 minutes because that's not realistic. But sometimes babies will want that, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they won't latch well.
What does that mean?
That means that the babies, unlike adults, have this amazing ability to eat and breathe at the same time, which, we obviously stop breathing when we swallow, but they can continually breathe and swallow, and it doesn't interfere with their ability.
So they're literally just latched on.
They're just latched on. And so there has to be a certain depth to the nipple being inside the baby's mouth, and there has to be a certain synchrony with how the baby's tongue is pushing against the roof of the mouth, and there has to be a certain rhythm. And sometimes if the latch is what we call too shallow, then it can be painful. Sometimes babies fall off. Sometimes they get super fussy and you're trying to put it in their mouth and they just keep moving their head away. There's a lot.
That's kind of a lot of pressure, especially if you haven't done this before.
Right, absolutely. At some point, you will decide if you can continue doing this or if you think formula feeding is just better for you. Most people in general can breastfeed and it will go just fine.
Is there anything that people should know about if they choose to do that? Any tips for people if you've selected to go to formula or some of the time going to formula?
I think unless there's evidence that your baby won't tolerate certain types of formula, I think a basic formula would be just fine. Babies, I think, tend to stay fuller longer on formula, and then the volume of the formula you need increases as the baby gets older.
So clearly, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to take a quick break, but stay with us and we'll be right back.
When Hennepin Healthcare says, "We're here for life," they mean here for you, your life, and all that it brings. Hennepin Healthcare has a hospital, HCMC, a network of clinics in the metro area, and an integrative health clinic in downtown Minneapolis. They provide all of the primary and specialty care you'd expect to find, as well as services like acupuncture and chiropractic care. Learn more at hennepinhealthcare.org. Hennepin Healthcare is here for you and here for life.
And we're back talking with OB-GYN physician Dr. Samantha Pace, talking about tips and insights for new parents when you welcome that newborn baby into the world. Let's talk a little bit about gear. Do you need any special stuff?
Oh my gosh, there's so much gear.
There's so much stuff. I swear to God, it quintuples the stuff you have. Do you need all that stuff?
Absolutely. No, the baby industry is a lot like the wedding industry, that they're taking advantage of this very special moment in your life and then being like, you have to accessorize it with all of these thousands of accessories. I actually have a good friend of mine who literally put her baby in a laundry basket as a bassinet for the first couple weeks of life.
We used the drawer of a dresser.
Yes, absolutely. There's a Finnish baby box, which is literally a box that you put your baby in. And yeah. You don't need any of the gear necessarily. Will it make your life easier? Possibly. Will it make your life easier for maybe 2 weeks and then you'll graduate out of it? A lot.
So maybe you could borrow some of that stuff.
Absolutely. You can borrow some of it. And again, if a baby has used it for maybe 2 weeks, it's almost new. And so there's a lot of there's Once Upon a Child, there's Facebook Marketplace, there's so many places that you can get gently used or sometimes new baby gear that other new families weren't able to use.
The only thing I remember is that we were told the crib we had been using was not any longer safe. I'm from a little different era.
Right.
So just make sure that you have the ones that are safe for your kid.
Right.
If you use something super old.
Right. Apparently your kids survived, though.
They did survive. They did. We were told that you probably shouldn't hand down this crib to somebody. But the thing was like modern for the 90s. It was super modern. But somebody said, well, the slats aren't quite the right distance apart. But we got a couple kids out of it. They're alive. They're hanging in there.
That is the one thing. The used car seats, you do want to make sure that the expiration date hasn't arrived for the used car seat.
Oh, that's a good tip. Okay, let's talk about support networks. What tips would you give to new parents about seeking out support?
It's hard because as a new mom, you don't really know what you're going to need or what you should ask for. And so really leaning on your mom friends who have been through this before and asking what they thought was helpful because they're going to know you better than even your doctor probably. I would say probably the essential things are food.
For yourself.
Food for yourself, yes. And then also a little bit of cleaning help. I feel like moms get overwhelmed and sorting through sometimes all of the new baby stuff that they get. And then also company. Staying home alone sometimes with the new baby can be very lonely. So I'd say companionship, food, and someone who can help tidy up the place.
Really good tips. And I'm hoping that new parents, moms and dads have some of those things. Those are good things. And if you're listening to this and you didn't just have a baby, maybe you could offer some of those things. Cleaning, food, companionship, really good advice there. What about making time for yourself to be an adult for a while?
Yeah, that definitely, if you have someone who you can trust to leave the baby with and take a couple-hour break, go out on your own, go shopping, treat yourself, go for a walk, even go grocery shopping without the baby. Doing something without the baby can help sort of restore your sense of center and who you are because generally, I've heard the transition from 0 to 1 can be the hardest because you go from being a fully functional self-caring adult to never thinking about yourself and only thinking about the baby. And that can be a real tough shift.
Yeah, I can imagine you're not using like full sentences anymore and you're not talking to other adults and you're not doing whatever your professional life maybe would have been or your social life would have been. It all kind of goes, doesn't it?
And one of the things I think also a lot of parents don't really talk about is it can create this weird divide between your friends who have kids and your friends who don't. Because your friends who don't have kids often are like, why can't you have a normal, prolonged conversation that's not interrupted every 5 minutes or 3 minutes by, the baby needing something. And then other parent friends are more understanding and there can be hurt feelings sort of on both sides. And so maybe taking time out to spend just one-on-one time with your friends who might not have children might be nice.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I hadn't really thought of that because, reaching out and asking friends for what you need is a good thing.
Yes. Being proactive is a good thing. Yeah.
So we're going to do something new on the podcast. I'm just going to ask you, we're going to do like a lightning round of questions, okay, about new parenting. And so we'll see what comes to your mind, all right? So what's the one myth about new motherhood that needs to be dispelled right here on this podcast?
You're not going to break your baby. Your baby is built to survive. Your baby is evolutionarily designed to survive. You're not going to break your baby. You're not going to kill your baby. It'll be fine.
Okay, question 2. What's the one product new moms and dads will be glad they bought?
This is hard. Everyone's a little bit different. One thing I didn't think that I would want, but I personally thought were super helpful are these bamboo cloth nipple inserts, breast shield sort of that you put inside your bra. The disposable ones are really rough and in that area is really, really sensitive. And so the sort of soft bamboo cloth.
That's a great tip.
Inserts that you put in your bra were a lifesaver.
Okay, so that is a really good practical tip. I was going to say the product you should buy is like a plane ticket to Tahiti or something. Good tips. Good tip. Okay, what's the one thing right now that new moms or expecting moms should stop worrying about?
Oh, I think it goes back to the prior point. You don't have to meet all the criteria. You don't have to follow all the rules. Your baby is going to be okay. In general, if you're consistent even 75% of the time and you mess up the other 25% of the time, that's totally fine.
That's totally fine. You're probably doing better than most of us. If you mess up 25% of the time, you're doing better than everybody else.
Exactly. If you mess up 49% of the time, you're probably doing just fine.
And you're doing okay anyway. Really good tip. Okay, so we have been talking with Dr. Samantha Pace. She is an OB-GYN doctor, and we've been talking about the joys of new parenthood. We're talking about those first few days and weeks of what you might expect. If you could summarize for us a couple tips to leave our listeners with, what would it be?
I would take advantage of the time before your baby can move. You can go out and do a lot of things, actually, when they're just stuck in the car seat. When they're immobile.
How long does that last?
I mean, some pediatricians will say you should wait until they're fully vaccinated to take them out. But going out for walks, going to restaurants, going to breweries, doing the things you want to do, so much easier before
It's way easier before they're mobile.
And I think people are maybe sometimes nervous to take a newborn out, but yeah.
Have at it. I think we went to a movie that first week.
Yes, even traveling, flying is easier when they don't know what's happening. And they're sleeping 80% of the days.
Yeah. So that's one good tip. You can take your kid out and do stuff.
You can take your kid out and do stuff within, reasonable.
Yeah.
You are doing a great job. I think moms are really hard on themselves and they always think that they're not doing it right. But you are doing a great job. Your baby is alive and your baby is happy.
Yeah, don't forget that.
Don't forget that. And your baby's favorite place will be probably on your body at some point. Be kind to yourself. Your body has changed and been through a lot. It has grown a human, has birthed a human, and now suddenly miraculously is feeding a human, if that's what works for you. Your body will be changed and you will reach a new normal with your physicality. It might not be, it's going to be different and it's going to be okay.
So we covered a lot of ground today, and I just want to get a quick rundown. Number 1, if you had sutures, that's normal. Number 2, incontinence, also normal. Number 3, sleep when the baby sleeps. Number 4, breastfeeding is a great thing to try, but it's okay if it doesn't work for you or you can't do it. Number 5, you don't have to buy all the gear. You can borrow some of it. You can find a friend who had it. Number 6, find people to help you out. Find your support system. Maybe somebody can help you out with food, tidying up, or just a little companionship. We all need that. Great information here. We've been talking to Dr. Samantha Pace, OB-GYN physician at Hennepin Healthcare and a women's health care specialist. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations to new parents. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll join us in 2 weeks' time for the next episode. And in the meantime, be healthy and be well.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Matters Podcast with Dr. David Hilden. To find out more about the Healthy Matters Podcast or browse the archive, visit healthymatters.org. Got a question or a comment for the show? Email us at healthymatters@hcmed.org or call 612-873-TALK. There's also a link in the show notes. The Healthy Matters Podcast is made possible by Hennepin Healthcare in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and engineered and produced by John Lucas at Highball. Executive producers are Jonathan Comito and Christine Hill. Please remember, we can only give general medical advice during this program, and every case is unique. We urge you to consult with your physician if you have a more serious or pressing health concern. Until next time, be healthy and be well.